This video will show the differences between making an array of an item and using a repeat item to create an array of items. For example, assume you want to cut a lot of holes in a rectangular cover to allow cooling air to pass through. You could use the array feature to create the holes. In that case, you create one hole, set its size, place it at the correct XY location, and set its machining parameters. Then, when the mouse is showing the option to select, double-click the mouse or draw a box around a circle. You then choose the array option and specify the type of array and the number of rows and columns and the other parameters. And you're finished. However, if you are likely to want to make changes to the array, such as when you're experimenting with a new idea or making something for a person who isn't sure of what he wants, it can be better to use the repeat item instead of making an array. The reason is because when you create an array of an item and then decide to change something about it, you have to delete all of the items and start over. So I will delete all of the circles except for this one. When you use the repeat item option, you create only one of the items and you put it somewhere in the drawing where it will not get in the way. I will move it here. It will not be machined. It will be the reference item that will be repeated. Then you click the Draw button and select the option to create a repeat item. You could also set one of the user buttons to create a repeat item. After creating the repeat item, notice that along the right side of the screen is a data field where you specify the ID number of the item to repeat. And it is showing what is supposed to be the face of a person who is telling you that this is a required data field that you cannot leave blank. The message at the bottom of the screen reminds you to either type the ID number of the item to repeat or click the data field and pick the item from the drawing. I will click the data field, and then, as the prompt along the top of the screen reminds me, I will click the item that I want to repeat, and it appears next to the repeat item. I will set the alignment so that the circle is centered on the repeat item. This will make it easier to place the array at the correct XY location, which in this example is at x.4 and y.3. Now I set it to be an array of items. And I can use the pattern option to set a 45-degree pattern. Now the rectangle has cooling holes. The advantage to the repeat item is that if I decide to change something, I change only the reference item that is being repeated. For example, let's assume that I want to make the holes smaller. All I do is change the size of the reference circle. I'll use the flex function to do that. The array of circles changes automatically. If I decide to use slots instead of circles, I delete the reference circle and draw a slot. The ID number of the slot shows on both the bottom of the screen and on the Item tab. So I could enter that number into the data field of the repeat item. I now have an array of slots. If I alter the shape of the reference slot, the entire array changes. Another advantage to the repeat item is that I can repeat the same item with a different type of array, or at a scaling factor, or at a different rotation. For example, I will let the mouse hover over this repeat item, press the hotkey Control-C to copy it, and then press Control-V to paste it. Now I will change it to a circular array and give it a scaling factor. So now that one reference slot is being used in two different locations for two different types of arrays and at different sizes. Of course, when you scale an item smaller, it will continue to cut properly only if the tool can fit into that smaller size, as it does in this particular example.